"Sarah, you're throwing your career in the trash. No studio will want a terrorist." My agent's words echoed through the office like gunshots. I stood there, holding my hijab for the first time, trembling. Outside, paparazzi waited to photograph the former Superman star who went crazy. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know about the night when something invisible nearly scared me to death in a haunted house in Atlanta. They didn't know about the supernatural voice that changed everything during filming. And they definitely didn't know about the third encounter that made me understand that Allah had been calling me all along, even when I was a complete disbeliever. 3 supernatural experiences, a destroyed career, a saved soul. This is my story. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 38 years old, born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm an actress. I've participated in major productions like Superman, Netflix series, million-dollar advertising campaigns. Today, I'm a practicing Muslim who wears hijab, something that cost almost everything I built in Hollywood. Before continuing, write in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know which countries this story is reaching, because I know that Allah uses our testimonies to touch hearts around the world. I grew up in a completely secular family in Beverly Hills. My parents were convinced atheists. My father, a studio executive. My mother, a Los Angeles socialite. At home, religion was synonymous with mental backwardness. God was a fantasy for weak people who needed emotional crutches. At 14, I was already drinking at Hollywood parties. At 16, I tried drugs for the first time at a party in a famous director's mansion. At 18, I lost my virginity to a married 35-year-old actor who promised to give me roles. It was the American dream that every LA girl pursued: fame, money, status. I got my first leading role at 22 in a CW teen series. Success came quickly. Magazine covers, red carpets, millions of followers. On the outside, I had everything. Inside, there was an emptiness so deep that not even heroin could fill it. Yes, I used heroin at 24. I woke up every day asking myself, is this it? Is this all there is? I didn't know it, but Allah was preparing my heart for something that would change everything. You can't imagine how. Atlanta, July 2018. I was filming a horror series, ironically. I rented a Victorian house built in 1890. I should have been suspicious when the rent was absurdly cheap. It's only for 3 months, I thought. What harm could it do? The first week was normal. In the second, I started hearing footsteps in the attic at 3 a.m. It's rats, I convinced myself. In the third week, objects started changing places. Keys I left on the table appeared in the bathroom. Books fell from shelves by themselves. It's the wind, I repeated, even with all windows closed. But on Wednesday of the third week, something happened that completely shattered my perception of reality. I was studying the script in the living room when I felt a heavy presence behind me. It wasn't imagination. The air literally became dense, as if someone had sucked all the oxygen from the environment. I turned slowly and saw a human shadow in the hallway. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't drugs. I had been clean for 2 years. It was something real, solid, malevolent. I stood up trembling, and the moment I took a step toward the shadow, all the doors in the house slammed simultaneously with a force that made the pictures fall from the walls. I fell to my knees, terrified, and a word came out of my mouth without me understanding why. Allah, protect me. I had never pronounced that word in my life. I didn't even really know what it meant. But in that moment of absolute terror, it was as if my heart knew something my mind still didn't understand. The presence disappeared instantly, but the awakening had just begun. After that night, I could no longer pretend we live in a purely material world. Something beyond science had happened there, and I needed to understand what. I started researching supernatural experiences, but not superficially. I dove deep. I read about exorcisms, energies, parallel dimensions, quantum physics. But nothing explained why, in the moment of greatest terror in my life, I had specifically called upon Allah. Why not Jesus? Why not Buddha? Why not the universe? This question tormented me daily. That's when I met Amira, a Palestinian Muslim makeup artist on set. She had something I had never seen in anyone, an unshakable inner peace. While everyone on set complained, stressed, dramatized, she remained serene. How do you do this? I asked one day. I know that Allah is in control, she simply replied. When you really believe that, nothing else can shake you. I told her about my experience in the Atlanta house. I expected her to think I was crazy. Instead, she smiled. Sarah, maybe Allah is calling you. He uses different methods for different people. Those words planted a seed that would grow in ways I could never imagine. But first, I would have to face the greatest resistance of my life, myself. And what happened during the Superman filming? You won't believe it. Accepting that Allah might be calling me meant destroying everything I knew about myself. My entire identity was built on being Sarah Mitchell, the rebellious liberal actress, free from any religious dogma. How could I simply throw that away? My career was at its peak. I had just signed to play an investigative journalist in Superman, a role that could catapult me to the next level of Hollywood. My agent, Mark Stevens, was already talking about Emmy nominations. Sarah, you're on track to become one of the greatest actresses of your generation, he said. But at night, alone in my West Hollywood apartment, I felt like a complete fraud. Amira had lent me a translation of the Quran, and I read it in secret as if it were contraband. Each verse seemed to speak directly to me, and He is with you wherever you are. Do they not know that it is Allah who accepts the repentance of His servants? The internal war was brutal. By day, I was Sarah Mitchell, the rising star. By night, I questioned whether any of this mattered if I died tomorrow. I'm losing my mind, I thought. Hollywood has finally broken me. Mark noticed my behavioral change. Sarah, you're different. More serious. This isn't good for your image. The public wants the fun, spontaneous Sarah. He had no idea that I was on the verge of a transformation that would completely destroy the Sarah he knew. And then came the moment that removed all my doubts. The moment that still gives me chills when I remember. Vancouver, October 2019. Superman filming. I was in my trailer during lunch break, rereading for the 10th time the same Quran verse. And when my servants ask you about me, indeed I am near. Tears streamed down my face as I struggled with the most important decision of my life. Allah, I whispered for the first time consciously. If you really exist, if you're really calling me, I need a sign. I can't throw my life away for an illusion. It was noon on a sunny Wednesday, not a cloud in the sky. Suddenly, the entire trailer began to shake. It wasn't wind. There was no wind. It wasn't an earthquake. Nothing else around was moving. Just my trailer, as if an invisible force was shaking it. Objects began to fly. Water bottle, scripts, makeup, everything being thrown from side to side. Then I heard it. A clear, masculine voice speaking directly in my mind, not through my ears, but as if someone were speaking from within my own consciousness. Sarah, stop running from your destiny. I fell to my knees on the trailer floor, crying uncontrollably. It wasn't fear like the first time. It was recognition. It was relief. It was like finding something you didn't even know you were searching for your whole life. When I opened my eyes, everything had stopped. The trailer was silent, but on the small table, untouched in the middle of the chaos, was the Quran page I had been reading. All the other pages were scattered on the floor, but that one remained exactly where I had left it, as if an invisible hand had protected it. In that moment, I knew there was no going back. Allah had answered in the clearest way possible. Now I had to decide. Would I obey the call or continue running? That night, locked in my hotel room in Vancouver, I did something I never imagined I would do. I read the Quran from cover to cover. I didn't stop to eat, drink, or sleep. It was as if every word had been written specifically for me. When I reached the verse, "O you who believe, respond to Allah and the Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life," I felt my heart break. My whole life, I had been dead inside without realizing it. Success, fame, money, none of that was real life. It was just a colorful illusion covering an existential void. At 4:17 a.m., I prostrated myself on the cold hotel room floor. I didn't know the correct position or the right words. I just bowed in the most humble way I could and spoke, "Allah, I don't understand anything about religions, about Islam, about anything, but I know you are real. I know you're calling me. I accept." Then I pronounced the words that Amira had taught me, in case I ever wanted to take the step. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulallah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His messenger. What happened next was the most intense experience of my life. A sensation of peace descended upon me like warm water being poured over my body. It was as if years of anxiety, depression, and emptiness had been washed away in seconds. I cried for 2 straight hours, not from sadness, but from absolute relief. Sarah Mitchell, the lost actress, had died in that hotel room. Sarah Mitchell, the servant of Allah, had been born, but I had no idea of the storm I was about to face. 2 weeks after my shahada, I made the decision that would change everything: start wearing hijab. Amira explained that it wasn't mandatory to wear it immediately, but something inside me knew it was necessary. If I'm going to be Muslim, I'm going to be completely Muslim, I thought. The first day wearing hijab on set was apocalyptic. I arrived at the studio at 6 a.m. as always, but the reactions were devastating. The deafening silence when I entered the dressing room, the whispers that stopped when I passed by. The director, James Morrison, called me aside. "Sarah, is this a prank? Some kind of extreme method acting?" "No, James. I converted to Islam." The expression on his face was pure horror, as if I had announced I had terminal cancer. "Sarah, do you understand what this means for your career? For the film? We can't have a visible Muslim as the protagonist. Think about the image, the international marketing." Mark, my agent, had a literal nervous breakdown when he found out. He yelled at me for 40 minutes on the phone. 15 years building your career, Sarah. 15 years. And you throw it all away for what? For a phase? For attention? Take that thing off your head now or find another agent." The Superman producers called me for an urgent conversation. Actually, it was an attempt at emotional blackmail disguised as a meeting. "Sarah, we're progressive people. We respect all religions," the executive producer began. "But you understand this changes everything, right? Maybe we can rewrite your character, give you a smaller role, something that doesn't compromise the main narrative." That night, alone in my apartment, I questioned everything. Was Allah really real? Or had I completely lost my sanity? Was it worth destroying 15 years of career for an experience I couldn't even explain properly? Then I opened the Quran to a random page and read, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out and will provide for him from where he does not expect." I decided to trust. Even without knowing how, I decided to trust completely. If Hollywood was difficult, my family was devastating. The call to my parents was the most painful conversation of my life. My mother, Patricia Mitchell, simply hung up the phone when I told her. My father called me back an hour later, screaming, "Sarah, what demon possessed you? Were you kidnapped? Brainwashed? This isn't my daughter." "Dad, it's me. I just found something that gives meaning to my life." "Meaning? You had everything. Career, fame, money. Now you've become one of those fanatics who blow up airports? My daughter became a terrorist?" The words cut deeper than any Hollywood criticism. My own father calling me a terrorist. My mother refusing to speak to me. My brother David sent a message. "Sarah, seek urgent psychiatric help." Christmas 2019 was the loneliest of my life. For the first time in 29 years, I didn't go home. I sat alone in my apartment, looking at old family photos, questioning whether I had made the right choice. "Allah," I prayed, "if this is your test, give me strength, because it's hurting more than I imagined possible." 3 months later, my mother showed up at my door unannounced. She had cried so much that her eyes were swollen. "Sarah, I don't understand anything about this religion, about this change, but you're my daughter. And if this truly makes you happy, then I'll try to understand." It was the beginning of a slow and painful reconciliation. My father took longer, 8 months of complete silence. But when he finally called me, his first words were, "Sarah, you look more at peace than I've ever seen you in your life. If this is what makes you well, then I support it." True love always conquers fear. It just takes longer than we'd like. In March 2022, I participated in a humanitarian mission in Syria through an Islamic NGO. I wanted to understand what it meant to be Muslim beyond prayers and rituals. I needed to see how other Muslims lived their faith under extreme conditions. What I saw in the refugee camps near Aleppo changed my understanding of suffering, gratitude, and faith forever. I met Fatima, a 45-year-old woman who had lost her husband and 3 children in bombings. Her house had been destroyed. She had been living in a tent for 4 years, depended on donations to eat. "Sister Sarah," she told me with a smile I'll never forget, "when you understand that this life is just a test, Every pain becomes an opportunity to grow closer to Him. My children are in paradise now. This isn't tragedy, it's mercy. I spent 3 weeks distributing food, medicine, and clothes, but they were the ones who fed me spiritually. I saw men who had lost everything still waking up for Fajr prayer at 4 a.m. I saw women who had nowhere to live still teaching the Quran to orphaned children. I saw young people who had witnessed massacres still smiling and making jokes. One night, during distant bombing that made our tent shake, Fatima held my hand and whispered, "Subhan Allah, glory to Allah." "Aren't you afraid?" I asked. "Sister, if Allah wants to take me today, I'll go happily. If He wants me to stay, I'll continue serving. Either way, I'm in His hands." In that moment, I understood that I had never really understood what it means to submit to Allah. My problems in Hollywood seemed ridiculously small compared to the unshakable faith of those people. I returned to Los Angeles completely transformed. If they could maintain faith in the midst of war, I could face anything Hollywood offered me. Today, 3 years after my Shahada, I can say with absolute certainty, losing my Hollywood career was the best gift Allah gave me. Yes, I lost leading roles. Yes, I lost famous friends. Yes, I lost millions in canceled contracts. But I gained something no role can offer: real purpose. I now work with Muslim NGOs, producing documentaries about Islamic communities around the world. It's not as glamorous as Hollywood, but I wake up every day knowing I'm making a real difference in people's lives. I married Ahmad, a Syrian doctor I met during the humanitarian mission. It wasn't a Hollywood wedding. It was in Amira's backyard with only 20 people present. But it was the most beautiful ceremony of my life because it was based on love for Allah, not ego or appearances. I still act occasionally, but only on projects that don't compromise my values. And you know what I discovered? There's a growing market for Islamic entertainment. Allah always gives us a way out when we trust in Him. For you who are watching and questioning your own spiritual life, I leave this message. Allah calls each of us in different ways. For me, it was dramatic supernatural experiences. For you, it might be a song that touches your heart, a verse you read by chance, or simply an internal emptiness that nothing material can fill. Don't ignore these signs. Don't be afraid to question everything you've believed until today. Sometimes, what seems to be the end of a life is actually the beginning of real life. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear about hope and transformation. And in the comments, tell me, what was the moment that made you question the true meaning of your life? I want to read every comment and respond personally.